welcome to season 3 of In the Green Room with Aidan Keene. Today we're talking about one of the most explosive, theatrical, larger-than-life bands in history. Kiss didn't just put on concerts, they created spectacles, and it was just such an iconic moment in rock history when Kiss came out. And my guest today is someone who didn't just grow up loving Kiss, but he helps keep the experience alive for fans all around the world. He's the founder of Mr. Speed, which is often called the world's best Kiss tribute. I'm joined today by Mr. Rich Kosak. Rich, thank you for joining me.
Thanks, Aidan. I appreciate being here.
I've been a Kiss fan all my life, and I'm sure you have too. And over the years, I've learned so much. But I'd like to learn more about you. So, how did you get into the Kiss Army?
Well, there were a series of events in the mid 70s because I was very lucky to grow up during the initial wave of Kissteria, if you will. So the first time I ever saw them was on the Paul Lynde Halloween special in 1976. And that really, kind of slapped me across the face. I thought, what is this? And then the next thing I saw was the commercial for the Kiss radio. And if you're familiar with that commercial, the radio, there's an explosion, and then you hear Detroit Rock City, and it was a very violent commercial for the times, I guess. And that caught my eye. And then the third thing that happened was there was a family that moved on to our block, and they had a young boy, 1 year younger than me, who he and I became friends. And one day I went over to his house and we go up into his room, and on his closet door, he's got the US Tour 76 poster. So I put together the Paul Lynde Halloween special. I put the Kiss radio, and then meeting my friend Chris and seeing that poster. And that was really, those three things basically just infected me with Kiss. And I have never looked back.
And were you automatically, because I forgot to mention to my viewers that you portray Paul Stanley, the Star Child, in your show, were you automatically drawn to Paul, or was it just all so cool at that time?
Yeah, I was pretty much a fan of all four guys equally until they released the solo albums. And then
Mm.
when they did that in September of 78, I went to my local record store, and this is a funny story. Can I be like really candid with you and say things that, they won't offend. But anyway,
Go ahead.
I go to my local record store and I had the option of getting Paul's record or Peter's record. So I ran home because I was so excited that I saw it too. And I didn't have any money at the time. This was 1978. I wasn't working. I was in eighth grade. My dad, my dad was in the bathroom taking a shit. And I sat outside the bathroom door and I begged my dad for $8 because that first solo album cost me $7.49. And my dad sat there, as painful as it was for me for how awful it smelled, asked me why I wanted $8. And I told him why. And he finished his business, came out, gave me the $8, and back up the street I ran because the store was open until 9 o'clock. And I was able to get Paul's album. And when I came home and put that record on, that is when I became a Paul Stanley fan.
Very cool. And it's funny, I hear so many experiences of, Kiss fans that actually started with the solo albums, and I'm kind of similar. Mine started with the Ace Frehley solo album,
Mm,
but they're all awesome. Especially, I loved them all, but aside from the fact that Ace had the top 20 hit with New York Groove,
yeah.
hearing Gene Simmons sing "When You Wish Upon a Star" is also something that I would never experience in my lifetime. But that's also pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I love them all the way across the board. And I'll be honest, I'm like most Kiss fans from my era. When we heard Peter's record, we were all like, what? What's going on here? What is this all about? Um, but now being 62 years of age, I really, really appreciate his record so much more than I did. And it was unfair of me back then. It was just, I was a young kid and I didn't, I wanted rock and roll. I didn't want this stuff that sounded like old time rock and roll. But
Right.
to Peter, that record meant everything. So now I have a lot of respect for the record.
Right. And at this point in time, were you already a musician, or did Kiss inspire you to become a musician?
Yeah, that whole year, 1978, Christmas of '78 was probably my favorite Christmas in my entire life because I remember getting the first Kiss album, Ace's solo album, live and double platinum all on vinyl that Christmas. I also got a number of things from the January 13th, 1978 show on the Alive 2 tour from the same friend, Chris, who had gone to the show with his uncle. And he brought home a number of souvenirs, uh, a couple of them being I got Gene's bloody towel from that show. Four, you could buy Gene's bloody towel for $25,000 from Gene. I got a set of Peter's drumsticks from that show. I got a lot of really cool things. So that was the best Christmas of my life. I have to be honest with you. But yeah, no, Peter Frampton inspired me to be a musician. But I wasn't, I also that same Christmas got a hand-me-down guitar and amplifier from one of my older brothers, who is a very accomplished guitar player today. Um, he had just purchased, I think it was a early '60s Strat, and was becoming a good guitar player in his own right. And he didn't need this gear anymore, so he gifted it down to me. So that Christmas was a very influential Christmas for me as far as becoming a Kiss fan and starting to play guitar.
Very cool. And now, I mean, well, for 30 over 30 years now, you've had, in my opinion, the greatest Kiss tribute show that there is. How did that start for you? I mean, take me back to the beginning of Mr. Speed.
Wow. Well, the beginning of it was I was at a record show because I collected vinyl when I was younger. And then as CDs and things came along, I sold off my vinyl collection. And here I am now. I've bought it all back again. And it's one of my favorite hobbies is to collect vinyl. So a buddy of mine and I would go to these area record shows in Pittsburgh. And one day we were there and I noticed a guy leafing through a Kiss book. And I made a comment over his shoulder, and before we ended up leaving the show that day, we had exchanged phone numbers. Turns out he was a guitar player and a big Kiss fan. So we kind of hit it off. And he was the guy that after we started to develop our friendship, we got together and started playing guitar together. He was much better than me at the time. And that was really what it was supposed to be. Mr. Speed was never supposed to be a band. It was supposed to be two dudes playing Kiss songs onto a cassette tape with no bass and drums. This was never meant to be a band. And here I am almost 32 years later talking to you about something that was never supposed to be.
That's incredible. And so how did you find the motivation to become this full-scale production? I mean,
Mm. Well, I didn't realize when we started it back then that we were going to last this long. There was no plan. I've gone through a lot of different band members over the years. You know, people come and go like you change your shirt every day, and for a multitude of different reasons. Um, but when this guy and I were uh, playing guitar, and we thought it sounds pretty good. Let's maybe put a band together. I mean, I had never been in a band aside from a very, very lame high school band for a short time. Uh, but so we got a bass player and we got a drummer. And then we had a rehearsal space. And it was like all of a sudden we were doing this. And it just kind of took off from there. But it was very slow. My career has been basically like running through mud with, concrete shoes. it,
right.
if I knew then what I know now, phew, I just think of where I could be.
And one thing that I was thinking about when I was preparing for this visit was, Kiss is known to have said that they were, I'm paraphrasing, basically trying to be the band that they never saw on stage. But with Mr. Speed, now you can be the band that people never got to see on stage because Kiss isn't touring anymore. So, I mean, now you are the next best thing to seeing Kiss live, which is really awesome that it progressed from that
It's
over
a lot of pressure.
a lot of
It's a
pressure.
lot of pressure. See, we don't subscribe to the pressure. All we're trying to do is be the best version of us. And if you pay attention to a lot of the other Kiss bands, because let's just call it what it is. There's not a lot of Kiss tribute bands.
Right.
You know, getting up on stage and playing in front of a little amplifier with a red drum set. It's not a Kiss tribute band. I'm sorry. Um, but the, we just try to do the best version of us within our own financial means. I can tell you that in my career, I've never had an endorsement deal from anybody. No one has ever funneled money into my band for any reason. The band that you see on stage is basically financed by the Bank of Kosak. And my wife and I are in debt for more money than we'll ever see with Mr. Speed. And it's just the way it goes. I didn't think whenever I started the band, Aiden, that it was going to last this long. And what drives me is my inner desire to be better than I was yesterday. So if in that process, people come and go, and then I have to bring new people on. I have to make new costumes and teach songs and start the whole process all over again. I've done that a number of times, and I guess maybe I'm just really good at it, and I just don't notice, when it happens. But right now, the culture in Mr. Speed is the best it has ever been. People are they work hard. We don't argue with each other. When we get together, we're the best friends. It's a very good culture within Mr. Speed right now, and that is super important in any kind of relationship that you have.
And the authenticity is just next level. I mean, the costumes, the gear, the stage show, it's unbelievable that you can do that and have the ability to do that. And I respect that a lot because, as a lot of my viewers know, I've been a tribute artist for a long time. I have my own Elvis show here in Massachusetts that I've been doing. But a lot of people don't understand the tribute verse, impersonators, covers. So I'd like to get your input on what separates a tribute band from a band that just plays the songs, you know.
Well, sure, it's easy. Um, a tribute band doesn't stop. They don't make excuses for what it is that they want to do. With our band, we'll sit around and we'll talk about ideas. I can remember when we had the conversation in El Paso, Texas, a number of years ago, to do the Dynasty slash Unmasked era. And we were at that time there were three other guys that were in the band with me, but everybody was on board. There was some skepticism. It wasn't everybody jumping into the pool, but over time, if you look around at all the other Kiss bands, everybody looks the same.
Right.
We don't. There's a reason for that. What we do is hard. You can't buy our costumes anywhere. Maintaining them is very difficult. Uh, can't pull anything that we do out of a plastic bag. The only member of our band is Shane, our bass player, who uses, a costume made by a company in Canada. But everybody else, we've all had our costumes custom made to fit us. I flew to Los Angeles 10 years ago, was fitted for a pair of boots. So my boots only fit me and they cost me $3,000, you know. And a lot of what these guys do in these Kiss bands is they buy boots from people who aren't shoe cobblers. So right there, you're putting your life in your hands. I mean, it's risky in my boots and they fit me, but I also know what my bass player goes through every single show to prepare his feet because his feet get chewed up by the boots that are the exact replica of something because I have a contract. It is such a crock of shit, but anyway, buyer beware if you're out there listening to this program and you want to be in a Kiss tribute band. Just be careful buying boots from somebody who claims to be a bootmaker because it's a very dangerous thing when you're on 7-inch platforms.
I bet it looks dangerous. I mean, I only saw Kiss live once. It was their penultimate show at Madison Square Garden, and I was amazed. I mean, I was up in the balcony because I'm a college student and that's what I could afford. But I was up in the balcony way in the back, practically needed binoculars. But every time an explosion would go off, I could feel it. And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh my God, what are they experiencing on stage in those boots and the makeup? It's insane what they must go through and what you guys must go through.
It we can't do a lot of explosions. We can't do fire. A lot of venues don't want that stuff. We want to do it because fans like you want to see it. But we're kind of handcuffed in doing certain things. Even with Shane blowing fire,
Mm.
a lot of venues don't want him doing that because of the liability, and we get it. So if they don't want that, we don't do it. We don't do the song Firehouse, or we won't play War Machine because those stereotypically the two songs that Gene has blown fire in. But we do on stage, I think, more of the gimmicks than most. We have a confetti storm, we have the fodders, we have the smoking guitar, the rocket guitar, we have the blood, the fire breathing. So we have a lot of the elements that Kiss fans expect. And what really chafes my ass is when we sign a contract with a venue to do a show, and then I advance that 1 or 2 weeks before the show date, and they say, "Oh no, you can't do any of that stuff in here. No, we have a new floor. There's no confetti. What if somebody spills beer on that confetti and then it sticks? You know, so what were you thinking when you hired us?
Right.
Were you thinking that we were just going to come in and, you know, be like an ABBA tribute or something? It doesn't make any sense. So that's one of the frustrating parts about being in Mr. Speed is a lot of times we're not really able to do what the fans want us to do, but the fans don't understand that because the venue's not going to take the punch in the face. They're not going to say, "Well, we told them they couldn't do that." And then the fans plop down 20 to $50 a ticket and come into the venue, and all we're doing is up there playing, on our stage set with the costumes. And they're like, "Well, where's all the bomb bats? These guys aren't as good as they say they are." So it's just it's one of the tribulations of being in our Kiss tribute band.
And that kind of ties into my next question too, because I study audio engineering at school, and so I'm very interested in, stage plotting and everything. And I was looking at your stage plot on the Mr. Speed website, and amazing, but how often is that an issue for when you're booking venues and things like that? Are there more venues that say no to it than say yes to it? Is that really a challenge?
No, it's not a challenge at all. Most venues, like for instance, you and I were speaking about the Stadium Theater.
Mhm.
They are completely prepared for a band like ours because they have, you know, artists coming in who have sold records, who have toured the world. So they need to be prepared for people like that. So they're also prepared for people like us. And that's always great. We don't carry our own sound and lighting production because it's very expensive. We
Right.
don't have the budget of Kiss. So we rely on the venues to have the in-house production. We bring everything else. And then when you have people that can do that, it makes for a really, really great experience.
Everybody listening, get tickets to see Mr. Speed if they ever come around. I mean, this sounds like a phenomenal experience that you don't want to miss, and I sure don't. I know that. So I'd like to segue a little bit into Kisstory, I suppose. Kiss has lasted decades, and not just lasted, but they've remained iconic over all of these years. Why do you think that is?
I I think, well, personally speaking, I think what they did was they tapped into the fountain of youth. And Kiss is a very youthful band. They sing about a lot of topics that relate to young people, whether it's, romance or standing up for yourself or, having a good time or being with friends and having a party. I think that's what it was never about the knights in Satan's service or kids in Satan's service that I heard all about growing up. It was never about that for me. It was always about the escapism. I think they created something that I know for me has stood the test of time, and I still get a smile on my face when I can buy a magazine at a bookstore with a Kiss article in it or something.
Well, Kiss has certainly stood the test of time, that's for sure. And one thing that I'm curious about, because I see it all the time in my own shows, the appeal of this music to so many different audiences. When you look out into your audience, do you see generations of people, kids and
Oh
you,
yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. That's one of the cool things about Mr. Speed and being in a Kiss band is you can bridge the generational gaps in ages. You've got I'm 62 years old, and you've got people that are around my age, maybe a little bit older. They've got children of their own. They're bringing the kids. Now families can't go to see Kiss. So the next best thing is going to see a Kiss band. And we try to give them the opportunity to come and see the best thing that they could hope to get for their money. Because it matters to me, the product that we put on stage. We're just not going through the motions and, stealing money from venues because we want to, go out and drink or whatever like that. We're beyond that. We're all grown adults. We want to drink good liquor. No, just kidding. But I think that's really for me, it's just they created something that families can share. I don't know if other tribute bands like, say, the Eagles or Led Zeppelin or the disco era, I don't know if you have families going to see those bands. But with our band, we've got people that have been seeing us for 25 years, over 25 years. And it really, really stuns me when we play certain cities, every year, every other year, and we see the same people coming back, or these people travel. You know, have you ever traveled 8 hours to go see a band?
No, I think the
Okay.
longest I traveled was 4 hours to see Kiss.
Okay. So we played a place outside of Pittsburgh, which is where I'm originally from. And we had a couple drive on a motorcycle 8 hours from New Jersey to come and see us. They not only saw us Friday night, they stayed and saw us Saturday night too. I don't know how many bands out there have as dedicated a fan base as we have. And we're just four Kiss fans playing Kiss music, man. We're not Kiss. So that's a very, very powerful thing.
And that's how you know that something has truly become timeless and special in people's lives, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yes.
One thing that I found extremely awesome was the fact that you guys kind of got to share the stage with Kiss, so to speak, on the Landlocked cruise um, this past year, or was it the beginning of this year, maybe? I'm not sure.
It was November of last
November,
year.
okay, yeah. What is that like to get that call to be involved with something, put on by Kiss?
It w it was nerve-wracking
I bet.
because we were humbled, and honored to have been asked. So let's start there.
Mhm.
But then the whole process of waiting the 7 months from getting that initial email to actually performing, there was a lot of, uncertainty. There were, things, that we had to negotiate that we didn't literally know until the week of the event whether or not they were gonna happen. Um, and I'll just give you one example of that. You know, they contracted us to bring our entire stage set and show out there. So we thought, great, we're playing for Kiss fans from all around the world. We're gonna be able to do this. And then the week of the show, they say, um, no, you're not blowing any confetti off. And we said, well, why not? And they said, well, because there's a cleanup fee. And I said, okay, well, how much is the cleanup fee? $2,000 a show. They were
Wow.
going to charge us to sweep up the confetti. So, needless to say, we were really, really kind of upset over the fact that they negotiated what they wanted to negotiate, got us in, and then said, nah, we don't want you doing any of that stuff. So then it became more about the music. So then we had to play even better. And I'll be honest with you, Aiden, all three of our shows were great. In our opinion, we played really, really well. And it was a very, very cool thing to play for fans from all over the world. That was the biggest, uh, the most gratifying thing for me personally. I'm sure I made a little bit of money, but in the end, I finally got to realize a dream, and that's playing for fans from around.
And you were playing for these fans. Were you playing for any members of Kiss too? Did you see any of them at your shows?
No, to my knowledge, no one from Kiss attended anything, which, I'll be honest with you, it's kind of a bummer. But Doc McGee did come to our second show, and he did watch the show. And after the show, we had to tear some of our gear off the stage really quick. for these School of Rock kids that were coming up after us because we had played from 3 to 4 in the middle of the afternoon. And all of a sudden, I get a tap on my shoulder and I spin around and it's Doc McGee. And I'm like, holy shit. And he goes, "Hey, I just wanted to tell you, you guys are really, really good. I mean, really, really good. The mannerisms, everything's spot on." And when you've got a guy that's managed Bon Jovi, Motley Crue, and Kiss, yeah, there's probably some street cred to what this guy's saying. So I couldn't wait to share it with my band. And ironically, the cool part about that was earlier in the afternoon, on my way to the venue, I passed Doc in one of the hallways and we took a photo together. So I was able to tell my story on our band website and social media and then pair it up with a photo of just he and I that afternoon in the hall.
That's really special. Totally incredible that I mean their manager saw something in you guys, and that's really
Yes,
awesome.
and that's cool. So regardless of what some keyboard warrior is saying about us, my non-hairy chest or the fact that we're not energetic as Kiss, Kiss's manager thinks we're pretty good.
Yeah. It's awesome. I've heard my dad is the one that introduced me to Kiss because he grew up in the 70s and when Kiss was really hot. But he was also surrounded by the group of parents who thought that Kiss was Satan's music, the devil's music. And so I'd like to ask you, as someone who grew up in that time period when Kiss was really hot, what do you think is the most misunderstood thing about Kiss? People see the makeup and they dismiss it at that time. What are they missing?
Well, I think had Peter been the focal point,
Mhm.
of the band instead of the guy with the tongue, blood, and spitfire, maybe more housewives would have warmed up to Kiss.
Yeah.
They certainly loved the song Beth. But you had the guy with the long wagging tongue who blew fire and spit blood and was chasing girls and doing all this stuff. When he's the most recognizable member of the band, maybe that could send the wrong kind of message. And I mean, let's call it what it is. Rock and roll was never really supposed to jive with parents. It was supposed to be, threatening. It was supposed to be rebellious. That's why kids loved it so much. You know, I can remember buying my younger brother for Christmas. I bought him a Rush T-shirt with a
Oh,
Starman on it. You know, and it was a naked guy on a decal. Well, when he opened that shirt up on Christmas morning, my mother was like, he never even put that shirt on his body. My mother threw that thing away faster than I could even figure it out. So that's just another case in point as to why rock and roll was never really supposed to be something accepted by parents.
right. Makes sense. I never really understood. I mean, I could kind of see how it would look that way, devilish or whatnot. But if you listen to and I'm not putting these songs down because I love these songs, but if you listen to a song like Shout It Out Loud, where are you seeing the devil in that, really? I don't know. I don't get it, but
Maybe not so much that song, but don't play Plaster Caster for them.
right, right. Now I have some fun questions for you that just
Oh,
simple
good.
questions that I put together here that I'm just curious about.
Good. I'm glad we got all the shitty questions.
If someone says to you, I've never really listened to Kiss, give me 3 songs to listen to introduce them to Kiss, what songs are you telling them to listen to?
I'm going to tell them to listen to Shout It Out Loud, Rock and Roll All Night, and oh boy, a third one. I'm just going to say Strutter. Let's go Strutter.
Those are 3 of my favorites, that's for sure.
You
My
know,
answer would be very similar. I might put Detroit Rock City in there, but I think Strutter's a
that's
good.
fair. That's fair. Yeah.
All right, favorite Kiss album.
Destroyer.
That was my
No hesitation.
that was the first one that I bought too.
Yes.
What is the most fun song to perform?
For me, I got to be honest with you, it's Unholy. I
Okay.
love I love performing Unholy because the guitar part and the guitar playing in that song on the Revenge album was so different than Destroyer. so different than the first album. It was two totally different styles of guitar playing. But I really we used to do Unholy back in the mid 2000s, and I always really loved playing that song. It's fun.
This one's a little more complex, I suppose. It just came into my head now. There have been obviously well, not many lineups of Kiss, but there's been a few different lineup changes. Do you think that through it all, Kiss is just Kiss, or is there one specific lineup that is Kiss for you?
Well, because I grew up with the original four members, that is the Kiss lineup. But I have supported every other lineup that the band has ever had, including the one with Vinnie Vincent in it. And I'm not a Vinnie Vincent fan. Just to be very clear about that. I'm not a fan. Mark St. John just had a bad break.
Mhm.
What did he do? 2.5 shows and then he was gone.
I think so.
Um, you know, I think Tommy Thayer is the consummate team player. He worked his way up, was in a Kiss tribute band in LA, but he was also in Black and Blue back in the 80s.
Mhm.
So, he knew the business. He was someone that the band could lean on. And I've always been a supporter of Tom. But you can't take anything away from you always remember your first everything, regardless of who that is. And no apologies to Eric Singer or Eric Carr or Mark St. John or any of these other guys, but they weren't there in the beginning when the band that they ultimately became a part of was formed and created this spectacle that you and I are here talking about. So for me, it's the original four guys in the band.
And I think that's why, at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, when Kiss was inducted, those original four guys were up there. And, Tommy and Bruce and Eric, they were all there, but they weren't the lineup that was, recognized that night. I
Right.
mean, they were in the speeches they were, which was nice, but I think
Right.
that is the case for a lot of people for sure. Like, I have two more of the lightning round questions for you.
Okay.
Most underrated Kiss song.
Oh, wow. Most underrated Kiss song that anyone even knows. Um, hmm. I've always liked Journey of a Thousand Dreams off
Okay.
of Psycho Circus.
Hmm.
I always thought that was a cool Gene song. Um, and I'm going to even go one further. I thought the best Gene song he ever did was Thou Shalt Not off of Revenge.
Hmm.
Uh, that song should have been a Kiss concert staple. It was mean, it was nasty, and it was Gene getting back to Gene. You go from Good Girl Gone Bad of Crazy Nights, and then you get Thou Shalt Not on Revenge. There's it's I'm going Thou Shalt Not all day long.
Interesting.
Those are my two choices, two Gene songs.
There's a lot of songs that when I was really diving into Kiss, I had no idea existed. A lot of them were from the Unmasked era, because it's just one of the more overlooked eras, I think. But some of them I really love.
There's a lot of great music on. I love the Lick It Up album, and I love Revenge. Those are my two favorite. But you also have, I think the song My Way on Crazy Nights is a great song. Reason to Live is an amazing song. Gosh, I'll fight hell to hold you. So many cool things. When Paul's voice was through the stratosphere and he was trying to outsing all the other frontmen in rock and roll at the time. He did an amazing job. But you know, that's a whole nother, that'll spark off a whole nother set of questions about Paul's role down that.
And my last lightning round question for
Right.
you brings it on home to Mr. Speed's production. Something that I took immediate note of was your your set, the props on stage. What is your favorite stage prop and why?
Of what we have right now,
Yeah, in your production.
it's going to definitely be our serpent.
Mm.
So, Kiss called their serpent Sam the Serpent.
Hmm.
So we're fans of the Harry Potter series.
Okay.
So our serpent is called Salazar after Salazar Slytherin. So I always love that. There's multiple times during the show where I'll go over and I'll bite on his tongue coming out. And, My wife will be off on stage, right, and she'll blow the fog. So as I'm doing that, I get a face full of fog. It's fun little moments like that. I used to really love when we did the Dynasty stage, and we had the cats up on either side of the drum kit.
Yeah.
Those cats are sitting 20 feet away from me in a closet right here in our home. I can't bring myself to sell them to anybody because nobody else out there deserves to have them, with their band. And they took me a lifetime to acquire, and I'm not ready to let them go. Maybe one day I'll make them part of my Kiss themed room. They're not that far away. But my answer to the question is our Serpent because he's super cool and he's really been beaten up on the road, Aidan. Um, we drove to Bethlehem, Pennsylvania 3 years ago, almost 4 years ago to do a show, and I pulled the trailer door down and he was split in half
Oh.
because he's made of styrofoam.
Hmm.
And we didn't have him secured properly, and the hills in Pennsylvania are like this. And we opened that door and and he cost, what was he? He was $3,000. So I didn't have an extra 3K in my pocket to have another one made.
Right.
There's some tape holding Sal together.
That's awesome though that you could even have something like that. I mean, it really just brings it to the next level.
And I see some of the other Serpents that some of these other bands have, and well, they're cute, but they're not cool. They're not cool like ours.
That's awesome. I can't wait to see this whole experience live in person. I'm really, really excited for it.
Well, I hope whenever you come to the stadium show that we get to meet one another, and maybe it will spark something with you and your Elvis impersonation. Who knows?
Elvis breathes fire. That might be kind of cool.
Do you throw the little scarves out to women? Do you do that?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that's the whole thing.
Cool. What got you into Elvis? You're such a young guy, and to gravitate to somebody as iconic as him.
That was my dad too. There was a band called The Wiggles that I was really into when I was a kid.
I've
And
heard of
yeah,
her.
I think that I always say I think my dad got a little sick of hearing The Wiggles around the house, so he gave me my first Elvis CD.
Oh,
That led to
oh,
my, that loved led to my first jumpsuit, and now here I am,
way
15
to go,
years later.
Dad. That's awesome.
And my dad got me into Kiss too, and we went together to see them, and it was a life-changing experience.
So you were at MSG for the last show?
I was there the night before the last one. Yeah.
Oh, so we were there for both nights. So,
Okay.
yeah, that was amazing. And I can honestly say that walking into that arena, you hear, oh, it's the most famous arena in the world. But, I walked in and you could literally feel the air and the excitement in that building. And I am so grateful that I got to experience that. Did you get a golden ticket? We happened to, the second night, we were on the floor back by the soundboard. We
Mhm.
were that far back, but great seats. And a friend of ours texted us and said, "You better get upstairs. Leave the building right now. They're giving something away." So here I am in my full getup, in my boots and everything, and I'm walking up steps, and there's thousands of people. Well, I didn't try to go after anything. I just happened to go out a door, and there was a kid with a box handing them out, and we
Wow.
each got one. And so we're very, very grateful. I have it on display upstairs in our bourbon room. Yeah,
And that's so
I
cool.
spent a lifetime trying to get that thing. And I earned that thing.
You certainly did, and that's really cool that you got to sit on the floor too. I was busy ducking for cover from the 747 that was flying over my head, but that's really cool. It was.
It's cool too because off of my 5 o'clock over here was John 5.
Mm.
And so we stood right next to each other for the most part. He was in the corral with all the family and the celebrities and everything. And I'm, with the common folk. And after the show was over, we fist pounded each other and he looks at me and he goes, "You look better as Paul Stanley than Paul Stanley does." So I thought that was a pretty cool thing for him to say to me.
Cool. And
Yeah.
since we're talking about Kiss's last concert, I guess I have one more question for you.
Okay.
The Kiss avatars. Where do you think that's gonna go? Okay, there's the
I really don't have any interest in it. I
Yeah.
really don't. Yeah. I mean, I saw it there that night and to
Mhm.
see it at MSG was pretty cool.
Right.
The way they fell down from the ceiling and everything.
Mhm.
I will be honest with you too, though, the way that the band left the stage, engulfed in all that fog, I thought was a super cool way for them to leave.
Yeah.
Um, but the Avatar thing, I'm not flying anywhere to see this. I'm not super excited about it in any way, shape, or form. Um, I was fortunate enough, Aiden, to see Kiss now 73 times.
Wow.
So I I I cannot die unhappy because I didn't see Kiss. I saw them for the first time in July of '79, and then the last time was the Electric Show in Vegas last November.
I feel the same way about the Avatars. Go see Mr. Speed.
Yes, do what he said.
Rich, this has been a blast. I love talking to people that don't just admire the music, but they, carry on the legacy because I really appreciate, people that do that. And,
Well, on behalf of myself, our crew, and my bandmates, Shane, Mark, and Rich, we thank you for giving me the time to chat with you about this.
and thank you for keeping Kiss alive.
Of course, my
Pun
pleasure.
intended.
Yes.
And folks, if you haven't experienced Mr. Speed live, like I said, go see it for yourself. It's the full Kiss experience, and you will not regret going. I guarantee it.
Yeah, buy one of our new shirts. Check it out.
I gotta ask you, Rich, is that Cheap Trick inspired?
Yes.
Is it? Yeah?
Very, very much. Yes.
All
And
right.
then on the back, it has our logo and it says, "Got my Kiss records out." The line from Surrender, which is going to be our intro song for our shows this year. We're
That's
friends
awesome.
with some of the people in Cheap Trick, and I've been a fan since I was a young boy. I'm not as well versed in Cheap Trickology as I am Kiss, but there are a lot of songs from that band that are just killer. And I've seen them a number of times live. They're a great live band. So yes, I wanted to pay a little bit of homage to Cheap Trick.
I will certainly pick up a shirt. I love that shirt. That's awesome.
Cool. Get it at the Stadium Theater.
Right on. Rich, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been
Thank
really
you,
cool.
A. I appreciate it, man. Thanks.
And folks listening, this is not the end of our KISS celebration. In just about 2 weeks, I will be joined by Jeremy Asbrock, who has been the guitarist for Ace Frehley's band for a long, long time. We'll be celebrating the life of Ace and sharing some stories and memories there. So that's sure to be a great time as well. Until then, may God bless you, and we'll see you again soon.